What's up everyone, welcome to another video. So in this video I'm going to show you how to replace a spur gear and tighten the slipper clutch. So this will work on all the 10th scale Traxxas 4x4 cars, so you can use this for whatever car you have. So if you've noticed that your car isn't moving but you hear the motor going, then you can take off this little gear cover with one screw there. I already took it out. And then it will either be the pinion gear or the spur gear or both. In my case, it's just the spur gear here. So how do we take it apart and get to that? So I took the wheels off. You don't have to, but it just makes it a little bit easier to work on the car. Also, this is the spur gear I will be using if you don't already have one. It's a 54 tooth. I think that's what it comes with most of the Traxxas 4x4 cars. I'm pretty sure that's what they all use. So that's what I'm using here as a part number, if you want to get one. So, we have to take off this back section, and to do that, you take out these two screws here, and then these screws here, and then the whole back section will just slide right off. After you've removed those 4 screws, this whole back section, trying to do this with one hand, will slide off. You gotta wiggle a little bit. Mine was a bit tight, so you might have to work at it a little bit. Just wiggle it back and forth a bit and pull pretty hard. You probably won't break anything if you take those screws out. So that's all for that part. Now for this next part, you have to take this screw out here, and also if you have this little clip down there, take the motor out, and then undo those 2 screws on the sides to take the ESC out to get ready for the next step. Alrighty, now the motor's out, the ESC is out, and yes, my pinion gear is on backwards now because it's the only way it fits in here. So next we have to undo that screw, and that screw there to take off this plastic cover. And this screw here so you can take this whole piece out. There we go, now you can pull this piece out, and then you can get to this here. So if you're taking this plastic cover off, I like to use just a little screwdriver or something. You can tell this is my prying screwdriver, it's a bit bent. So then you can just try and stick that in there and pry this cover off. Once it's that far, you can kind of grab it, go down there with it, and wiggle a little bit so it doesn't crack. I've cracked another one of these before. And there you go, now that is out. And we need that out so we can get to the little screw that we can't see. Where is it? Come on. So we can get to that little screw there to take out the slipper clutch. That's what that little screw should look like there, just this little teensy-tiny thing. That'll be either a 2mm X driver or 1.5. And from there, you just grab the whole slipper clutch thing and pull it out there. That little auto drive can be wherever. Now you have the whole slipper clutch out. So now with a 2.5mm hex driver, you can loosen all 3 of these screws here. So from here, after you take out those 3 screws, you can just pop off the gear. It's hard to do this one-handed. There we go. That will just pop off there, and then you will be left with this. So here I have the new spur gear and the old one. It says it right there too, 54 tooth. So that's good. They're exactly the same size. Then from there, you just take this and then you put this on here. It just slides right on. Then you just gotta line it up with those holes there. And then you just put these little screws right back in. And now to tighten the slipper clutch, that's this whole little thing here. If you didn't know, you can see the little pads there. And then the pads here rub on this little metal plate. So then to tighten it, there's this nut here, not sure what size it is, but you just grab it with pliers, and then you just tighten it until it's tight enough. And then there we go. Eventually, you won't have to tighten it here anymore. You'll need to get a few new parts for this part. I'm not sure if you can actually buy those separately or if you just have to buy the whole thing. But if you do need to buy the whole thing, make sure you get it from the Traxxas store or you get the actual thing. I think it's around $80. There's lots of rip-offs for like 20 bucks. Don't buy those, they will break instantly. So to put this whole slipper clutch thing back in after it is tightened and you have a new spur gear on, you're going to hold it this way. You can see in there's a little bearing there that this is going to go in. So you put this in there, it slides in, and then what you have to do, oops, this motor's in the way, is line this up here, and this can be kind of tough, but then you just got to, okay, hang on, no, I can't get it. Finagle this in, hold on, we're gonna get it. Sometimes it helps to take a little something like that, and then just hold it up a bit, so you can put this in, and then this might have to be moved just a slight bit. And then you just make sure this is all the way in, and then you can put your screw back in. So with this little teensy tiny set screw, you can use some Loctite on this. I'm not going to. I've stripped out all kinds of these little tiny set screws. When I'm put Loctite on, I'm trying to take them out. So I'm not going to, just because of that. And then you put it right back in this little hole once you get this lined up. Not even totally lined up. And once it is, you can put that straight in there. And then you should be able to spin this, and it will spin the front drive shafts. There you go. So now that you've got that screw in there, you're just going to put this plastic piece back in there. And of course, you're going to screw it all in. So now that you've got those two screws in, you can take this piece, goes right like this, and you just twist it that way and put it right back in here, and then take the two screws that should look like this and put them in there. So now that that's in, we can put the electronics back in. So for the ESC, it just plops in like this, and I definitely like to have the button facing the outside of the chassis. I've made that mistake several times. I put it on the inside, and then you can't turn it on or off without taking off the body. So just a little helpful tip, just screw that back in. And then to put the motor back in, you can see this cutout right there, and then there's a screw right down there. So you gotta make sure the wires are in the right position, and then you just plop that right in there. Also, I have the VXL system in this car, so if yours doesn't look exactly like that, then that's why, because you might have the Titan. That's what I have in my other cars. Works great. Then you want to put this down, put the cords down here, and then take this little clippy piece and put it back in there if you already had one. Sometimes you'll have shorter cords that don't need it. So next you're going to fit this whole part back onto here. Now, where this can get tricky is this. As you can see, there's two flat parts there. So you have to get that lined up with the flat parts inside there. And down here, there's a little cutout there, you'll notice. That has to go in there. So it can be kind of tricky. It'll definitely take a few tries, but after a little while, I promise you will get it. Okay, there we go. Now that you've got that in, you'll know when it's in when on the bottom here, that goes all the way up right there. It'll look just like this. There won't be a big crack there. And when you spin this, it'll spin all the drive shafts at the same time. So now you have to put these 4 screws back in these spots and underneath there. There we go. Now those 2 screws are in there and these 2 are up here. Actually, now I can put it back up on the stand. There we go. So next we're going to take this little screw here and put it through here. There should be a little slot here, and then you will find the hole somewhere in there. So we're actually not going to tighten this all the way, just partially, so that this can still move around, because we still have to set the gear mesh. Now to set the gear mesh, you're going to need a little strip of paper like this, just normal paper, and then you're going to move this up like that. It's very hard to do one-handed. So you can slip this piece of paper in between the gears. There we go. Now it should be right in between the pinion and spur gear there. And then make sure you push the motor down all the way. Push the pinion gear down all the way. Make sure it's actually in between the teeth and not just, make sure they're actually, you know, connecting there. And then what you're going to do is tighten this all the way down while still putting some light pressure on the motor just to make sure it stays in place. So now you take the piece of paper and then you pull it out. Okay, so mine just broke, so that means it's a bit too tight. But if your piece of paper can slide right out without moving either of the gears, that's how you know it's too loose. Once you get the gear mesh at a good spot, then you can just kind of move things around, maybe move both of these at the same time. Make sure everything is spinning when you spin this, just to make sure that everything is good. Mine seems all good. So now you're going to take your battery, plug it in, turn on the transmitter, and then the car. Always turn on the transmitter first. Okay, now that the fan is calmed down a bit, we can just give it some very light power. If everything sounds good with just light power, light throttle, then you can start giving it a bit more just to make sure that everything sounds and looks good, just to see that everything is connected properly, nothing is skipping or anything like that. So if everything sounds and looks good, nothing's skipping, it's all doing great, then you can put this little gear cover back over, just like that, with a small screw. There we go. Once that is in, then you can just kind of go over the car again before you put all the wheels back on and test it outside, and just make sure everything's nice and tight, everything's looking good and at least somewhat clean. Mine's pretty dirty right now, I've got to clean it soon. Now that you've got the wheels back on and the gear cover on and everything's all set, then you can test it again just on a stand just to make sure. Mine sounds nice and smooth. Then you can test it out on the actual ground and try giving it quite a lot of throttle just to make sure that the slipper clutch is at a good tightness for you. It's hard to drive one-handed indoors. It works better to test it out on a very grippy surface, like some nice pavement or something like that, or even like a really nice carpet if you have grippy wheels. But it's really dark outside right now, and my camera won't pick up anything at all. So I just have to try it inside, and it works great. So I really hope this video helped you a lot. If you want to see more slash videos of the big slash and the tiny slash over here, you can click right here for a full playlist of slash videos. And if you want to see my most recent uploads, you can click right here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.